Hey folks, thanks for tuning in today. I keep recording videos that are too long, and so I was going to record a 3 bangers, tiny tattoo, filler tattoos, right? If you've ever heard of those. Itty bitty tattoos, dice, cherries, and nails. Too long. We're not going to do that. So today is actually, it's just going to be cherries. So if you hear me in the voiceover talking about how we're doing other tattoo, we're not. Just cherries today. So if that sounds interesting to you, we're going to draw 2 different styles of them. I'm Clay, the techie tattooer. Let's just get to the iPad. All right, folks, so here we are. We're going to go ahead and start off with the cherries. I'm going to make sure that my stabilization is turned way down. Yep. And here, absolutely. Done. On my technical pen, I've got pink up just because that's a great version to just kind of draw from, right? And we're going to go over the design components of American traditional cherries. What you've got is your 2 stems, your 2 little balls, and a couple of leaves. So it's pretty much 2, 2, and 2. That is 90% of the way cherries are done. They're almost never done just a single cherry. It ends up making it look like a little bomb or something like that. So you want to make sure that you've got this cute little testicle thing going on here. Within that, though, you have so much room to play around with, right? There's like the little loopy thing that you can give it there to make it look like the stem is sinking into your design. There's a million different treatments you can do for how complex you want to make your leaves, whether or not you want to do something simple like that or something more interesting with like a swoopy shape there. Yeah, so we're just going to go over one design, but you know me. As I'm going over them, I'm going to talk about the different options. For our dice, it's just going to be understanding how a square works and how to draw a perspective. And then, of course, there's the considerations for, do you really want your dice to be nice and regimented and perfect? Or are you trying to create something a little bit more dynamic where you've got, maybe some edges that swoop in on your dice, maybe some weird little things here, right, to make it look a little bit more cartoony, like it's got some concaves in there. You'll see that happen all the time. Again, dice are done in pairs, and you want to make sure that each set has enough of it visible so that you can get some nice visible dot work going for the dots, making sure that they're along the perspective line, right? As we're going along here, right? Yeah, so that's going to be our dice. And then, of course, you've got the traditional nails where they're big, like railroad spike nails. You can do sort of flat ones like this, where you've got the classic crossed 2, right? You can get the crossed 3 versions, which is the much more biblical style nails. You can do the more circular tops to them. You can actually give them a perspective on the square top there as well, right? If that's more your speed. And then a lot of times you'll get like some kind of red splash behind them, just to give them a little bit of dynamicness. Oftentimes you'll have a ridge line there, so they're square nails. You don't ever really see, I don't ever notice that I've seen circular nails done, right? You can have circular tops to them, but they'll still have a square edge to them that you'll shade along and shade along. But we'll get to all that stuff when we get there. So let's just go ahead and start with some cherries. And I'm going to draw 2 circles. Hold down this to get a nice perfect circle there. We'll go back here. We don't really want that one to be smaller, right? So we got a nice little butt going on there. I'm going to pull this out here, hold it down to get that nice and perfect and cheat. Hold that there, right? You don't want the stems to be too long. They're roughly, even though the stem is longer, they're roughly about the same size as the cherry itself, right? That's kind of something to just sort of think about. Then we'll get 2 little leaves coming off it. That leaf isn't quite big enough. Yep. And yep. And so if we cared about like our gesture drawing, right, what we're looking at for the gesture of this piece is just a fun little curve like this, right? You could even say that it was like a teardrop almost, sort of gesture shape, right? And that's what it's going to be taking up in space. So we've got this. I'm going to drop the opacity down, get onto a new layer, and go over to my calligraphy monoline, drop down into the black, and then we're just going to start drawing. There we go. And you can see actually even these stems are a little bit on the long side. Oop, forgot to stick those on the same layer there. Or I accidentally stuck them on the same layer, and that's not what I wanted. So I'm going to go to distort and just shorten these just a little bit, and then bring these guys down to meet it. There we are. I like the way that looks just a little bit better. I am going to go back to the stems though and stop this guy from coming in at such an angle. We're going to want him to come up just a little bit straighter out of that cherry itself, out of that cherry circle. Yep. And then I'm going to add some of these because I like the way that looks personally on my cherries. Right, the other option actually would be duplicate, get rid of this, and you could actually just do one of those, right? That is absolutely acceptable, and then you just do your circles on, yeah, you just shade in that shape, but that's not what I personally like. I think adding just a little bit is it's a fun choice. So literally, folks, that's it. That's your cherry design. It's super, super simple. If you want to go for a thicker, more American traditional, quote unquote, buff style design, right? You either just make your design smaller or you go over and you make your pen size bigger, right? I'm at what, 5-6% right now. So, we could even go up to a 15%, 14%, whatever that is. Whoops. New layer. And there we are, right? So you've got your kind of two different styles of cherries there, where they are exactly the same, but because of the buffness in the outline, they're going to look a little bit different. All right, just muted that layer there. I'm going to go ahead and take this, squish it all down onto one layer now that I'm done with the layering. And then we're going to make choices about where blacks would go, that kind of stuff. And so this one we'll start with, it's going to be the reference layer. Going to go over to my airbrush. I'm going to go to my soft brush because that's the one I like. Automatic tool. And oh, I'm not on my new layer. I don't want to do that again. There we are. And the reason I started from this side going up this way is because this leaf needs to tuck behind. And so the shading's going to come all the way up against this leaf here so that it looks like it's going behind. And yeah, so then we're going to go to freehand. Actually, no, I won't do freehand this time around because I'm on my own layer, right? Start a new layer. And we'll just go ahead and grab this one. And this one we're not going to do freehand. We're going to just add in that shading. And for this one, we're just going to go ahead and add in this shading. Yep. And then now we're going to hit a little bit of freehand because this is going to want, excuse me for not being able to talk today. Nope, smaller pen. Right, it's going to want its own little bit of shading. And then there's another way you could just do that, right? And then erase out. Either technique is totally valid. It's just what you like to do. And so that way you've got a little bit of a divot for that stem to go into. You could also, there's nothing wrong with it. I don't personally do it, but you could give these stems a little bit of weight where we go back here, we'll go back to our 6%. I'm not exactly sure what that was. And you could add some thickness into your cherry stems there, right? You could go through and add a little bit of thickness into those cherry stems there. And in that case, you'd make them brown, right? So we'll go ahead and why not? We'll do that just so that we've got two fairly different models, right? Okay, and then because we've got that, now we're going to have to cut out this piece and the shading there. There we go. That's kind of cute. Okay, we've got those. Squish this down onto one layer. You could, because American traditional is silly and doesn't make any actual sense, we could add a little bit of whip shading into the stems themselves. And do something like this. Totally allowed. Looks great. No worries there. And now we're going to go underneath this layer to start dropping our colors in. I'll just grab that red because it's available. And then go to my new layer. No, I'm not. I'm going to erase that out. And the reason that happened is because that line doesn't come all the way down there. Then we're going to add a brown to it. Yeah, this brown. Why not? Whoops. No, that's not the inking one I want. I want my technical pen. Too tiny. Oh, time to do taxes. There we are. Go through, get a new layer for my green. Boink, boink. And now, because I've got everything on its own layer, I can go to my airbrushing tool here. See how big it is, about like that. And start taking things, putting in a little bit of the you know what? And then we could even get super crazy. Yep. And we'll go up to my greens here. Back to the airbrush. Well, aren't you interesting? That's not what I wanted at all. And there we go. And to make this look a little bit more American traditional, what you would do is you'd go to this black shaded layer and you'd cut out some of the gradient, right? And you'd make the gradient much harsher, not so buttery smooth. I do have a problem doing that in my own art. Just in general, I like the long, smooth gradients. In order to do something more American traditional, you don't do those hard, smooth gradients, right? Yeah, see, now it's much more cartoony with just that harder drop shadow there. And then we'll add a little bit of a skin break here. A little bit of a skin break here. Right, and that's pretty cute for some American traditional cherries, right? So as you can see, there's a bunch of different ways we can choose to shade and choose to do this kind of stuff, right? I'll go ahead and just duplicate this layer, and then we can show how we can do all of that with the airbrush. Right, we could make it more like that. Right, so that's another way we can do that red. So we've got the hard line option, right? Or the gradient airbrush option. We'll just leave it on like that. Same thing goes with the other style, where we're just going to drop, whoops, we're going to make it the reference layer. Drop in some reds. Go to the next layer. We don't need any browns, so we'll just drop in the green. There we are. And then we'll give it some black. So the other option, like I was saying, when I was originally doing the shading, was we can freehand it, where we can say, okay, nope, I'm going to give it this little bit of a break here. And we're going to do this kind of thing with it. Right? It's going to curve directly into that. Whoops. Right, and that's that other option there that we can do. If we did something like that, I personally would choose to then give it something kind of like this. I don't think I like that. I think what the problem is, yeah, you know what? We'll just say forget that. Go back to the red. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it like that. Make those roughly the same size here, those little white space gaps. And then I got to add black for that layer. Right, and there we are, folks. Two different styles of American traditional cherries. Yeah, if you really want to build confidence in your clients, you would take this line here and clean it up a bunch, because that's an ugly little line. Nobody likes that. Right. Exactly. So that's a little bit cleaner and nicer. Yeah, so that's the two styles of classic cherries that I would recommend doing. Right, and there we are for some fun, cute little American traditional style cherries and a couple of different ways you guys can do your treatment on them. That's it. That's what we've been doing, folks. Hopefully, that's something you enjoyed. Hopefully, this made sense to you guys and was useful. Other than that, thank you very much. Do like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what I could or couldn't have done better. And yeah, you guys have a great day, and it's been awesome doing this with you. Stay tuned for the next video. Bye.